Alright, so what's the deal? What's the deal is that in the midst of all this drama that has been happening in the last days, I guess at this point in the last week, related to World of Warcraft, some other important thing was happening, which was the investor call at Activision Blizzard, and in that we heard and read a few other things related to the game. Before that, though, let's go back to the title of this video, because you can now make your part. You can now help the game, as you have always pointed out, myself as well, to be fair, that you could be making a much better job at being a developer than many of the current Blizzard developers. Well, Blizzard has opened up even more positions, job openings for the WoW team. Many of these are pretty important because we can see there are positions open for a class and combat designer for WoW, game designer for PvP content for WoW, as well as class and combat designer for the tuning of World of Warcraft, some more technical positions like software engineer, knowledge manager, engine software engineer, but then also content designer, sound designer, quest designer, as well as senior positions and, more importantly, the bigger stuff, the bigger roles: associate game producer, associate production director, and associate game director. The lead game director of World of Warcraft right now is Ion Hazzikostas, right? And this is also the last role he had before being promoted to lead game director. He was being brought in from the raid encounter designer role he had before to become the associate game director before he would be, promoted into the actual role. The associate role in this case is often being used as some sort of triage period, some sort of period where you're shown the ropes, you get to side with the actual person doing the job so you can then take in his shoes in the near future. So it is interesting that right now, in fact, this is a little bit older than this, a couple of months ago, they have started looking for what could be the replacement, the follow-up of Ion Hazzikostas. Now, based on the pace, I guess depending on the pace that they want to go with this could be not for the next expansion, because the next expansion is already in the works and they are already knee-deep into that already, so it wouldn't be for that, but it would be for the following one. So the associate game director will come to side with Ion by the next expansion, getting ready for whatever comes next. That would be the general idea if this were to be the case. So now this is your chance. These are all the positions open, so you can go yourself and make a difference at Blizzard. Probably better given the situation until it clears up. If you're a man, you would probably have better chances, I think. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out related to these job openings coming up is the speculation regarding this, because speculation is always cool to have, it's always cool to talk and play what if. Some might say this is a Blizzard's beefing up of their roster, all right, strengthening of their development team before they get into the next expansion, because to get ready for what is about to come. Now, I have to be kind of careful pointing this out because it could trigger people, all right? It could give some PTSD about the ravages of time, about how fast and how quickly time passes, so I have to be very careful and tactful when I point this out. We have had Vanilla WoW, then we have had TBC, Wrath, Cataclysm, Mists, we have had Warlords, Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands. This means that the next iteration of WoW is going to be the 10th installment of World of Warcraft, the 9th expansion and the 10th game version, essentially. So, big anniversary, big milestone, big event. So it's likely that Blizzard is going to try to push a lot about this type of nostalgia deal type of thing. Kind of like, if you remember what they did with Worlds of Draenor, when they tried to push to market, very, very smartly, very brightly, to market the whole Warcraft is coming home. We are putting the war back in Warcraft. Warcraft is about orcs versus humans type of deal, which is also what ultimately got, like, what was that? 12 million people to play Worlds of Draenor at release. Oh, no. Pepe laughed. They did not know. They definitely did not know. So the speculation is that this strengthening of the development team is in relation to the possible stronger, heavier content that is going to come in the next expansion. Also because we have to stop and look at what we have right now in Shadowlands. I know, it's kind of sad, it hurts to talk about these things, about what we had to go through, but at this point it's history. It took almost 8 months for the first big patch of the game to come out. 9.1 came out the 29th of June, and wow, Shadowlands came out the 23rd of November. So 7 months and a half almost of this patch, and that was the longest you ever had to wait for the first major patch in a WoW expansion. Any other 0.1 patch, any other major patch being released after the release of the game took between 3 to 5 months. In some cases, sure, it was a smaller patch because it didn't include a major raid or a major new zone. Think about Legion, when the first patch introduced Karazhan and Trial of Valor. It was still a big patch. So with that in mind, this doesn't look like we are going to continue at the same pace we have had in Legion and in BFA. Because in Legion, we had Emerald Nightmare as the first raid, and then you had Nighthold, and then you had Tomb of Sargeras, and then you had Antorus with Trial of Valor on top of that. You had 4 raids. And then in BFA, you had almost the same release schedule, because you had Uldir, you had BOD, Eternal Palace, and Nyalotha, with the Crucible of Storms. So you had 4 raids and a tiny one, divided in 4 major patches, the release, and then 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Shadowlands came out straight up with a major raid, Castonatria. Castonatria was nowhere near Uldir, it was nowhere near Emerald Nightmare. It was much bigger, larger, harder over time. And then you had to wait almost 8 months for the other raid, which is also a big raid, like Sanctum of Domination. So thinking that we can get 9.2 and a major raid, and then 9.3 and another major raid seems very, very unlikely. If you think about the commitment that Blizzard made towards shorter expansions, less than 2 years per cycle, this is something they pointed out. Ion himself pointed out after the debacle of Worlds of Draenor and the major gap in content in Worlds of Draenor. They were committing to releasing patches in a more stable and evenly spread manner, which they did in Legion and BFA. It was very, very consistent. But now in Shadowlands, it's all gone up in smoke, because if we assume the expansion is expected to last something less than 2 years, meaning, let's just say, it's going to end next September, this new tier just came out at the start of July. So to be able to fit 9.1, 9.2 and 9.3 with 3 major raids from July to September in 14 months, it's almost impossible. You would have to put an entire raid tier every 4 to 5 months. And you know it just took Blizzard almost 8 months to push the first raid tier. With this release schedule, you would basically have to release Sanctum of Domination at the start of July, then 9.2 would have to come out at the start of December, and then 9.3 would have to come out in April, and then the next expansion would have to be out in September, right? That is not going to happen. I am, generally speaking, a positive man myself, but this is not going to happen. There is not going to be a 9.3 and there is not going to be 2 more major raids. And this is without even looking at the story. Again, I'm sorry for having to point you in that direction, but you have to face reality. After the whatever adjective you want to give to the whole Thanos Infinity Gauntlet stuff that the Jailer pulled off in the last cinematic, you have the situation where the heroes have lost, they have been defeated, you have now Anduin joining Zovaal away, so you are preparing for what is going to be the big showdown with the Jailer. So even the story is completely hinting at the fact that there is only going to be 1 raid left, the Jailer, Zovaal, as the last boss. If this was a different time, okay, if we didn't have all of this negativity around Blizzard, the lawsuit, people getting fired left and right, boycotts and protests, and the shadow of the pandemic slowing down the development, you could be thinking, you know what, I think Blizzard is pulling a surprise card. I think we are going to get the Jailer raid in 9.2, which means we have room for 9.3 for a surprise. It means, boom, Void Lords were behind this all along, and now we're gonna get dragged into the Void Lords realm for 9.3 or some shit like that. Unfortunately, we are not in that situation right now, and all of this looks just like fanfiction. It's not very likely to happen. It's much more likely that we're gonna prepare for 9.2. It's gonna come out in January. 9.2 will be the last patch, the last major patch of Shadowlands, and then the expansion will come out in September or October or whenever after a 9 or 10 month long 9.2. Sure, there might be some minor 9.3 coming out, maybe a dungeon, maybe some extra bits here and there or something like that, but maybe even a mini raid, some Trial of Valor, Crucible of Storms type of deal, but nothing major. That seems much more likely. So given this scenario, given this possible alternative, that is what the speculation would lead towards. The strengthening of the development roster for the upcoming celebration of the 10th installation of the WoW franchise. That would something they would be able to market the shit out of. I can already see all the marketing and the advertising related to the 10th version of WoW. That's just guaranteed it's gonna happen. So I think they're putting a lot of stocks into that, and it's gonna be a very big one. That I think is certain, and I think it's going to be a very big expansion with a lot of content pushed into it. And this part is me being on copium. Now, the other thing worth pointing out related to this type of discussion is the recent investor call made at Activision Blizzard. And there is some interesting stuff there that relates to WoW. Of course, being a speech, a talk, a discussion with the investors, they try to pour as much honey as possible towards all of their titles. So when you go and read World of Warcraft, it's described as the net bookings again grew to a double-digit percentage driven by the launch of TBC Classic, and then subscriber numbers and hours played were higher following the release. World of Warcraft remains on track for much stronger engagement this year than in a typical year. That is typical outside of a modern expansion year. Now, WoW, as being part of Blizzard Games, is doing well, is printing quite a good amount of money, as you might have heard about all of these investor calls and reports, which make the point of Activision Blizzard making more money than ever, right? They are firing people and closing down offices while making more and more money. A lot of that comes from Activision and from King, the IP for mobile games that Activision bought, but Blizzard itself still makes a good amount of money if you consider the fact that they are not into mobile. They're not printing money with some cheap loot box, freemium, gacha type of game. What I found more interesting about all of this was the monthly active players, because we do not have the number of the actual concurrent or active players every month from WoW anymore. This was cut since the days of Worlds of Draenor, when for the first time since that number was passed, it went lower than 6 million active monthly users for Worlds of Draenor. This was towards the second half of Worlds of Draenor. So since then, it was just predictions, speculations, right? It let out a bunch of people who constantly, supposedly all the time, were pointing out that WoW had less than 4 million subscribers, and then 3, and then 2. I unironically even heard people saying it had less than 1 million, right? This happened for a long time. So we don't know the actual numbers. What we do know is the total player base of Blizzard titles, active monthly users. What is interesting about this is that you can try to reverse engineer this number, because you have WoW, you have Hearthstone, and you have Overwatch. I'm not going to count Diablo, and I'm not going to count Heroes of the Storm because the numbers are just very tiny. My question to you for today would be, how would you split this number? You have 27 million players to give out to WoW, Overwatch, and Hearthstone. But there is a problem. According to the description about Blizzard recently, and by recently I mean quite a few years, the company is dying and all of the games are dying, right? I mean, StarCraft is dead, Diablo, at least until Diablo 4, is dead, Heart of the Storm has been basically decommissioned by Blizzard, WoW is doing worse and worse, and Overwatch has, failed, really, whatever, nobody cares about anymore, at least until Overwatch 2. So according to these descriptions, how do we even split these 27 million users? Because 10 million to WoW, 10 million to Overwatch and 7 to Hearthstone, that still puts WoW at a massive number. Not to mention that the number is way too big for both of Overwatch and Hearthstone. Any type of possible prediction of players for Overwatch and Hearthstone doesn't put the remaining Overwatch players at higher than 6 million, and for Hearthstone doesn't put it at higher than 4, which would leave 17 million players left for World of Warcraft. Now that is kind of still high. There is an easy trick that Blizzard can use for this. They can double dip, right? They can count an active user in Hearthstone as an active user in WoW as well, even though that's the same person playing both games at once. So they can make it count for 2, maybe even for 3, or for 4 if it's playing and it's been active every month in all games. But even if that actual number wasn't 26, but it was like 20, or maybe even 18, the number to split amongst these 3 major games, WoW, Hearthstone, and Overwatch, is still pretty large, so to speak. Now talking about the number of players that Blizzard has and their lower amount of revenue that they get compared to Activision and compared to King, the last point of the video is going to be about the announcement related to the new games in the pipeline for Blizzard. Because besides what we already know about the remakes and the remasters, right, of Diablo Immortal, Diablo 2 Resurrected, and the Immortal mobile game, we also have 2 titles in internal testing. So we don't know about them. The only thing that is known is they are about Warcraft. So it could be something more modern, more, apt for freemium loot boxes type of games, like for example battle pets, or like for example mission table missions. Something I'm afraid to say, something like Raid Shadow Legends. You have your followers, they can be common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. They have their abilities and you send them on a mission, right? That type of deal. That is sure to be able to bring in and print some money. Now, I will finish the video addressing what I already know will be pointed out in the comments. Oh, I am smarter than everyone. I know that the future of money making in games is in mobile games. They take so much less effort and they can make you so much more money. It's just so easy to cash out on some cheap pay-to-win mobile games. That's what's gonna happen in the comments. Call me Nostradaisen. Now, that is true, of course, that making money in mobile is the way to go. It dwarfs the amount of revenue you can make in PC or console. The problem that you are not considering is that you do need something to jumpstart your mobile game, because the competition is insane. As you might have noticed, there is plenty of trash being thrown every day as a mobile game. What you need is a strong IP. What you need is a strong title that if it's being thrown as a mobile game, it will get a following, which is what WoW is. So when you hear demented people saying things like, oh yeah, Blizzard should totally let WoW die because they can just make money with mobile, that's not gonna work. Because if WoW dies, you no longer have the pedigree, you no longer have the advantage, you no longer have the historical franchise from which you can start churning out mobile game after mobile game. You need the backbone of the PC game. Just like you need, say, the League of Legends game on PC to start churning out some other IPs related to the actual game. If you kill the game off because you think you can just go into mobile and make money there, it will work at the start, because initially all the people will come from that game, so they will still follow you in that new game. But after that, basically the second generation of game, and then the third, and then the fourth, you won't have the backbone, you won't have the security of your franchise anymore because you went into mobile. So yes, I am aware mobile can print you money, and I am aware a company can shift resources and development time into making mobile games, which can make you angry and annoyed if you just care about, normal games on PC or on console. But I wouldn't be too worried. I wouldn't mind, because at the end of the day, you still need your cash cow on your PC to be able to keep producing mobile games in the first place. Okay, that was enough. It was enough talk about non-in-game related things. We can take a break for today. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you want to support the channel, myself, my majordomo, my cleaning lady, my driver, and my babysitter, you can leave a like, comment down below or subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys anyways, see you guys soon, and in the meantime, and for the record, the mobile games have actually gotten some pretty positive reviews so far. Doesn't matter to me, I won't play mobile games ever.